Of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, inaugurated today the technological and scientific pole called after martyr Abdel Hafid Ihdaden in the new city of Sidi Abdallah on the occasion of the celebration of the National Student Day coinciding with May 19. The Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, INP Army General Saad Shingri, has paid a working visit of inspection to the first military region where he has supervised a tactical exercise with live ammunition. And the Israeli army has intensified its pounding on the Gaza Strip, killing scores of Palestinians in the central area of Nusayrat at a time when fighting continued in the northern and southern parts of the enclave. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. Good afternoon. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has inaugurated the technological and scientific pole called after martyr Abdel Hafid Ihdaden in the new city of Sidi Abdallah in the suburbs of Algiers on the occasion of the celebration of the National Student Day coinciding with May 19. The ceremony, held under the motto, "The Algerian Student from Resistance and Liberation to Science and Edification," was attended by high state-ranking officials, government members and heads of national bodies and institutions, as well as representatives from the students and university families. President Tebboune listened on the occasion to a presentation made by the Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Kamal Badari, about the technological and scientific pole that stretches over an 87-hectare area and which includes 5 high schools. President Tebboune exchanged with the students of the High School of Artificial Intelligence and listened to explanation about the specialties taught in the school. President Tebboune also visited the National High School of Mathematics and inquired about the training it delivers to students through Algerian professors and competencies. Meanwhile, to mark the National Student Day, the Algerian National Radio organized an event and an exhibition at the Issam Saoudi Auditorium that brought together university students, professors, and representatives of the student family in Algeria. The Director General of the Algerian National Radio, Mohamed Baghali, spoke about the great symbolic of this event.
Our challenge is to mark unusual events. This is what the radio has been doing for some time. Today marks the Nation Students' Day, and we didn't want to celebrate it as we used to do. We took advantage of this opportunity, and thanks to our radio friends, we suggested a conference that brings together the 3 generations and opens the debate among students who are today's generation, and we have things to say. On the sidelines, our radio friends have organized this small exhibition. It is small by symbolically very big, through which startups, incubators, and the handling of students' projects are not an illusion but a reality.
Des étudiants, etc. Ce n'est pas un leurre, c'est une réalité.
That was the Director General of the Algerian National Radio, Mohamed Baghali. And on the occasion of the National Students' Day, human and people's rights activist Mahrez Al-Ammari underlined that this day symbolizes the bravery of the Algerian students during the liberation war against the French colonial power and the high degree of political awareness they enjoyed, in addition to their commitment to freeing Algeria and recovering its independence and sovereignty. Let's listen to him.
La Journée nationale des étudiants, cette journée qui...
The National Students' Day is a day that reminds us that May 19, 1956 remains a witness of the high level of political awareness of the Algerian students during the National Liberation War. Those brave students who sacrificed everything to adhere the spirit and the message of the November Revolution and reaffirm their armed and political commitment for Algerians' independence.
Proclamée Journée nationale des étudiants.
That was human and people's rights activist Mahrez Al-Ammari. And here in Algiers, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, today met with his Central African counterpart, Sylvie Baipo Timouni. The meeting centered on means of strengthening the bilateral relations as well as the ways of reinforcing ties between the two countries.
فقد شكلت المحادثات الثرية.
The rich conversations that we had were an opportunity to examine the different areas of cooperation and understanding which must be relaunched and strengthened to move forward in defining our common objectives at the bilateral and multilateral levels. The Minister underlined the strength and political will which encourages us to build a balanced, honest and beneficial relationships, and which are based on the values of trust, understanding and solidarity.
That was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf. Now, the Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, ANP, Army General Said Changriha, paid a working visit of inspection to the 1st Military Region, where he has supervised a tactical exercise with live ammunition, Al-Hisn 2024, carried out by units of the 12th Mechanized Infantry Division and units of the Republican Guard Command, as well as an exercise sports parachute jump performed by the National Women's Military Team at the Ain Wassara Air Base in the central part of the country. Mariam Bershi has more details in this report.
A communique issued by the ANP indicated that following the welcome ceremony, Army General accompanied by Major General Ali Sidan, Commander of the 1st Military Region, held a detailed presentation made by the director of the exercise covering the stages of its execution. Subsequently, the General of the Army closely attended the various combat actions, which were characterized during all their phases by a high professionalism and a tactical level, which confirmed the rigor in terms of planning and execution, and reflect the competence of the executive in setting up and conducting the various combat action, as well as the mastery by the personnel of the weapon systems and equipment made available, which contributed to the achievement of the objectives set as part of strengthening the operational availability of our armed forces. Addressing the female team who he hailed for their performances, the Army General Said Changriha had this to say.
It's my pleasure, on the occasion of supervising the execution of the sports parachute jump exercise by the National Women's Military Team, to express my satisfaction of the level reached by this team, which in fairly short time has become an example of willpower, success, and a model of inspiration for the female military personnel of the ANP to aspire to integrate with force all the areas of the military profession without exception.
At the end of the exercise, the Army General greeted the personnel of the units engaged for the efforts made during the exercise, emphasizing the prime importance of the preparation and execution of exercises at different levels, as well as plans for the effective improvement of the combat. During his visits to Ain Wassara Air Base, the Army General supervised a sports parachute jump exercise performed by the National Women's Military Team, which was preceded by a brief presentation of its execution phases made by the head of the Military Sports Services. Meanwhile, the General of the Army met the members of the National Female Military Parachute Jumping Team, which he reiterated his consideration and support for the efforts made by the female personnel in the ranks of the ANP in the different fields and specialities of the military profession. It is important to emphasize that the parachute jump exercise is part of the preparation of the women's national team for upcoming national and international military sporting events and competitions.
And the 10th World Water Forum is continuing in the Indonesian capital, Bali, with the participation of Algeria's delegation. Many participants coming from around the world have made presentations on the status of water in their respective countries, as well as cooperation prospects in this field, in addition to means and ways to address the many water-related challenges and difficulties, as emphasized by the governor of the World Water Council, Dale Jacobson.
Well, I'm here as an honorary governor of the World Water Council, and I served 2 terms on the Board of Governors, and I chaired the site selection committee that ultimately selected Bali, Indonesia for the 10th World Water Forum site. And I think it's necessary to have an organization like the World Water Council that promotes that sort of interaction between developing countries and the West.
The Bali Forum is expected to deliver its first ever ministerial declaration since it was first held in 1997. The declaration, which will be officially adopted on May 21, contains four main points that Indonesia is proposing at the forum, foremost of which is an international agreement through the UN General Assembly regarding the establishment of World Lake Day. The Algerian Workers' Party has announced the candidacy of its General Secretary, Louisa Hanoun, for the presidential election of September 7. During the meeting of the party's National Council, members of the Central Committee agreed on Mrs. Hanoun's candidacy. In a speech, Mrs. Hanoun indicated that the party has the political courage to participate in the elections, stressing that its participation is considered a victory for the multi-party system and democracy. She highlighted the importance of the forthcoming elections aimed at choosing the best candidate to lead the country, adding that her party promotes the equality of rights and duties. Referring to the developments taking place on the national, regional, and international level, Louisa Hanoun called for the defense of the rights of the Palestinian people who face a genocide perpetrated by Israeli occupation forces. And a partnership agreement has been signed between the National Social Insurance Fund for Employees and the Brugman Belgian University Hospital Center to strengthen bilateral cooperation. The agreement was signed by the Director General of the National Social Insurance Fund, Mr. Nadir Quadria, and the Director General, Belgian University Hospital, Ms. Caroline Franks, under the supervision of the Ministry of Labor, Mr. Faisal, or the Minister of Labor, Mr. Faisal bin Talib, and the Minister of Health, Mr. Abdelhaq Seyhi. On the occasion, Mr. bin Talib stressed that the partnership represented a new milestone in the existing cooperation between the two countries, aimed at improving the quality of care for the Algerian patients both in the country and abroad, in the implementation of the commitments made by the President of the Republic to promote health care for citizens. The Minister said that the reduction in transfers abroad aims to be a normative indicator of the development of the health sector in Algeria through the public and private sectors, medical equipment, and the human skills involved, adding that the agreement provides for exchange of expertise and international cooperation in the field of health. According to the Minister, the cooperation will enable the exchange of technology, knowledge, and medical expertise between the Belgian and Algerian hospitals, in addition to the prevention of diseases and the development of medical research. The Israeli army has intensified its pounding of the Gaza Strip, killing scores of people in the central area of Nusayrat at a time when fighting continued in the northern and southern parts of the enclave. Palestinian sources said that over 30 bodies and 20 wounded were recovered from the rubble after a residential building was razed to the ground by airstrikes carried out overnight against Nusayrat. In the meantime, fighting continued in the northern town of Jabalia as well as in Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza. The UN affirmed that the Israeli operations on Rafah have forced about 800,000 people to flee the populated area and move toward Khan Yunis northwest. It warned that the Israeli attacks on the territory had virtually destroyed Gaza and caused a disastrous humanitarian situation as 2.4 million inhabitants are threatened by famine. To Africa now, where the Army of the Democratic Republic of the Congo announced that it thwarted an attempted coup involving foreigners and Congolese. The announcement came as various sources reported that gunfire had been heard late at night in the vicinity of the Palais de la Nation, which hosts the office of President Felix Tshisekedi, following the attack by armed gunmen on the nearby home of Economy Minister Vital Kamerhe in the municipality of Gombe. The spokesman of the Armed Forces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo indicated that all the assailants have been neutralized, including their leader. And in Sudan, at least 8 civilians were killed and many others were wounded in an attack carried out by the Rapid Support paramilitary forces in a village of the states of Al Jazeera, in the central part of the country. The paramilitary forces attacked the village of Wad al-Munir with the aim of plundering its resources. The paramilitary forces took control of the Al Jazeera state in December 2023 after the Sudanese armed forces withdrew from Wad Madani. And finally, in Afghanistan, 66 people were killed in new flash floods that hit the northern province of Faryab in the country, which is currently facing a series of violent and deadly rainfalls. Local sources reported that at least 5 people were wounded and 8 others were missing, stressing that 100 or 1,500 homes were destroyed by the heavy rainfalls. Meanwhile, in the western province of Ghor, 55 people were killed and more than 3,000 homes were destroyed so far and thousands of others damaged by the floods. Let's recall that over 300 people died last week in the northern part of the country on account of flash floods. And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for our weekly program, starting with the international event of the week, compiled and presented by my colleague Mariam Barshi. It will be followed by another program on economy by my colleague Saad Bouazi. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin in English. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and bye-bye for now.
The international event of the week.
The Israeli authorities announced this week that they were sending more troops to Rafah in Gaza's southern part, bordering Egypt, where the two main crossing points remained closed for several days. The Israeli army pounded this week the northern part of the enclave, which has been devastated by several months of bombardment as its troops moved deeper into the city of Rafah. This caused about 600,000 Palestinians to flee Rafah after being ordered to evacuate the area, where more than 1.2 million people have sought refuge. According to the UN, about 80% of Gaza's population, estimated at 2.3 million Palestinians, have fled their home since the conflict broke out 7 months ago. Asked if by ignoring warnings, notably by its allies, that a ground offensive into Rafah would be disastrous for the civilian population, the Israeli government is just playing for time and has no intention to end the war. Our political analyst Hamoud Salhi had this to say.
I think, first of all, the Israeli government did not expect for this war to go this long. Initially, they planned for it to end by end of December last year. By that time, they would have dismantled Hamas and got back the hostages. And then that date was pushed to the end of January, and now we haven't heard when. The goal for the Israelis at the time continues to be bring back the hostages, getting rid of Hamas. But at this point, that is not achieved because of the resistance and because of the inability of the Israeli army to defeat the Palestinian resistance. Connected to this is the fact that the Israeli Prime Minister faces serious allegation of corruption inside Israel. His plan to, first of all, continue this war because the moment it ends, he's brought to justice. But he also, in his plan, if he wins, if he were to win this war, he might buy time for himself and get get momentum that might help him in the court. Another major reason that we need to consider for this war to continue until now, despite what the allies said or claim that they are against the ground offensive into Rafah, they have never followed that with concrete action. It is clear that the messages that Israel is getting is that Europe and the United States would only speak and not take actions. Their positions, from this perspective, their position is taken as if they are endorsing Israel. Finally, this war has continued this far because of the American support, because of the European support, and deep inside, the strategic goal of the United States in that region is to destroy Hamas and to establish an order that would serve their strategic interests that are not the same as those of the Palestinians or those of the peoples in the region.
This week, Egypt's foreign ministry confirmed that his country had joined the genocide case brought by South Africa before the International Court of Justice against Israel. In a statement, it said that the decision to back South Africa's case was made, as it put it, in light of the worsening severity and scope of the Israeli attacks carried out against Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. In an appeal made this week to the ICJ, South Africa once again accused Israel of continuing its violations of the Genocide Convention and urged the UN's top court to order Israel to immediately cease its military operation and withdraw from Rafah. Several countries have joined the lawsuit brought before the ICJ last December by South Africa, among these Libya, Nicaragua and Colombia. Asked on whether Egypt's decision could be considered a symbolic gesture aimed at expressing its concerns and discontentment at the situation in neighboring Gaza, where political analyst Hamoud Salhi commented the issue.
But there are other countries. It is not just Egypt. There is Turkey, Nicaragua, Colombia, who have also joined South Africa. The South African foreign minister took this decision, or the decisions of countries joining in, and in particular Egypt, as significant, important. According to him, this will add to greater momentum to the Palestinian cause. The Egyptian statement underscored the timing of their intervention, which, according to them, comes in light of increasing aggression against Palestinian civilians in the Gaza. However, with the case already before the ICJ, the International Criminal Court of Justice, since December 23, and with the ICJ ordering in March provisional measures demanding Israel to immediately take all necessary and effective measures to stop what amount to genocide activities. This move, and based on what South Africa statement says, only helps highlight the case in the media. It exposes further Israeli genocide activities. In other words, it will not be added to the court already to the materials the court already has. That would only delay the process, and it will add more items to the case. And with it already in action, it cannot. Egypt's position will only be the way South Africa has presented it.
The US President Joe Biden's decision to postpone the delivery of weapons to Israel was at the center of a debate held this week by the US House of Representatives. Delivery of 3,500 bombs was halted by the US administration to force the Israeli government to reconsider its offensive on Rafah in an attempt at further worsening of the humanitarian situation there. The House's debate over a bill put forth by the Republicans highlighted the gap existing between the Republicans and the Democrats over the situation in Gaza. The bill secured 324 votes against 187. Asked on whether the House's debate highlighted the persisting divisions within the US House regarding the endless conflict in Gaza, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi commented the issue.
This vote speaks to the power of the Israeli lobby in Congress, just as it may show the decline power of this lobby. Despite the fact that the bill was passed in the House, now it goes to the Senate and finally to the President before it becomes law. Despite this passage, when we add the numbers of those who did not vote, 44 of them, the House is composed of 435 members. To those who voted against the bill, 187, the total number of those who did not vote for the bill or have no opinion is higher than that of the supporters, 231 to 224. This could mean that the Israeli lobby is losing power and influence in the Congress among a large number of House representatives. It also speaks to the division that exists in Congress, a division that is a result of the atrocities committed against the Palestinians. It is another indication, such division is another indication of the impact Gaza has had in American politics, particularly with the youth, students who are making strong statement in support of the Palestinians and demanding the U.S. government to take real actions.
Let's recall that the delivery of aid to the distressed population of Gaza resumed this week via a maritime corridor of Gaza. However, the UN warned that the maritime corridor cannot replace the land routes considered the most effective way of delivering aid.
By eliminating barriers to trade in Africa, the objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, is to significantly boost intra-Africa trade, particularly trade in value-added production and trade across all sectors of Africa's economy. The AFCFTA is the world's largest free trade area, bringing together the 55 countries of the African Union and 8 regional economic communities to create a single market for the continent. The aim is to enable the free flow of goods and services across the continent and boost the trading position of Africa in the global market. As part of its mandate, the AFCFTA is to eliminate trade barriers and boost intra-Africa trade. In particular, it is to advance trade in value-added production across all service sectors of the African economy. The AFCFTA will contribute to establishing regional value chains in Africa, enabling investment and job creation. The practical implementation of the AFCFTA has the potential to foster industrialization, job creation and investment, thus enhancing the competitiveness of Africa in the medium to long term. The AFCFTA entered into force on May 30th, 2019, after 24 member states deposited their instruments of ratification following a series of continuous continental engagements spanning since 2012. It was launched at the 12th Extraordinary Session of the African Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government in Niamey, Niger, in July 2019. The commencement of trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area was on January 1st, 2021. 54 African Union member states have signed the African Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA agreement. Only Eritrea has not, and 47 have ratified it. At present, the non-state parties are Benin, Eritrea, Liberia, Libya, Madagascar, Somalia, South Sudan, and Sudan.
في كل ثانية عبر العالم خبر جديد.
رحبت اللجنة الوطنية الصحراوية لحقوق
في تقديمه بهي حدوش. صباحكم
تحية لكم أينما كنتم، أهلا بكم إلى هذه النشرة وإليكم.
وبين خطوط الطول ودوائر العرض تتقاطع الأحداث.
هذه المرحلة أعتقد هي مرحلة تحول العالم يتغير.
لما تخرج القرارات ستطلع على صياغة فيما
الأمن الغذائي القومي العربي.
إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، نافذتك على العالم.
بنيابس عبد المنعم، إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، موسكو.
فاطمة رحماني، إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، واشنطن.
من العاصمة الصينية بكين، خليل بن عيسى للإذاعة الجزائرية.
كمال بن جعفر لإذاعة الجزائر الدولية، اسطنبول، تركيا.
فاطمة الزهراء سعد الدين، إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، روما.
لإذاعة الجزائر الدولية محمد الفاتح خوخي، لندن.